Hey Gearheads, and welcome to Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I'm Cory.
And I'm Matt. And each week this podcast will serve as a catalyst for discussion on all sorts of topics that grind our gears, excite us, or just need an extra bit of conversation.
And on this week's episode, we have a special surprise for you. So both of our dads have graciously agreed to come on and either harass or be harassed by us. We'll see how that pans out. But they are willing to join us for a special Father's Day episode, and we're grateful to have them.
It should be a lot of fun.
It should be. But first, I just want to let y'all know that this is a discussion about all things automotive. You are more than welcome to join in that discussion. We have many ways for you to do it through our social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at GT Garage Talk. Or you can just go to our website, gtgaragetalk.com. We've got links to our email address, our YouTube channel, all that fun stuff, so you can get in touch with us that way. But we truly love to hear from y'all. But all that boring stuff aside, let's get into this week's episode.
Let's jump in.
Yeah. Well, I just want to take a moment and introduce my dad, Wayne. He is, whether he knows it or not, one of the reasons why I'm so into cars. I've alluded to the first car I fell in love with being a Camaro that was owned by the people living in the apartment above us, and it was moving here for his job that actually started all that to happen. So, Dad, I blame you.
Blame accepted.
And also joining us today is my dad, Rob. He's a big part of the reason why I'm into cars, definitely. Lots of fun growing up. Lots of stuff that Mom doesn't know about in vehicles from growing up, things like that he and I shared. And we're excited to have both of you here and looking forward to some fun discussion.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So, I guess, Dad, we'll start off with you just because I know a little bit of your car history, but why don't you run through just a few notable cars in your history or cars that have stuck with you, maybe ones that you wish you had back?
Well, the first one, or really the only one, would be, I think it's a 1970 Mustang, and it was just pretty much wasn't a Bosch or anything. It was just a Mustang 302, 3-speed, got me from A to B. I was in the Navy, and anytime I wanted to go somewhere, I had to find somebody that had a car. So one time when I was home on leave, me and my dad went down to the Chevrolet dealer to buy a Vega.
Oh boy.
Wow. Which we didn't. I saw a little well, they had two Mustangs out there on the used car lot, and I ended up buying the cheaper of the two.
Yeah. So, as a Chevy guy, I still think you made the right choice on that one. Going Mustang over Vega, for sure.
Well, the Vega was new.
Yeah.
And I was just looking for four wheels.
Yeah. So, what drew you to the Mustang over everything else?
Well, I hadn't given that much thought, but Mustang was a Mustang.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big, powerful one, but it looked like a Mustang. And other friends I had that were in the Navy were driving Pintos and little cars, and so I did okay with the Mustang.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you wish you had it back?
Not anymore. No. When I got rid of it, I realized that was one of my biggest mistakes as a young man. Didn't have my dad around anymore. Didn't have my dad on side anymore to say, son, you need to think about this. So I just sold it in haste.
What'd you end up with?
A Torino, which was a big mistake. It was a used Torino, and I didn't have it very long. After having two used cars, I ended up trading that Torino in on a Mustang 2.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, story keeps going downhill.
Well, it's four wheels. I wasn't the big car guy like everybody, like you guys. I was wanting to be independent and have four wheels, and not looking for a ride. Have your own ride. And I had that car when I got out of the Navy, and just things progressed from there. No cars to brag about, but that's a car that I missed dearly after I actually lost sleep.
After you get rid of it.
After I got rid of it, yeah, But you can only lament so long. You got to move on.
Yeah. Dad, what about you? What was your first car or the car that stuck out in your mind, kind of one that you'd gravitate back towards?
I probably would have to. The one I gravitate towards is good, hardy, basic German engineering.
Oh boy.
And to go back to the original sports car maker, Dr. Ferdinand Porsche, who created the Volkswagen Beetle. So,
Okay.
It's just good stuff, right? I had a 69 red one. It was my first. And then I inherited my sister's 67.
The blue one.
The blue one. We ended up having to take 3 pieces of 1/4-inch steel plate and bolt them together inside the pan to bolt the front seat down so I could drive it. But I drove that thing at least another 2 years in that condition. Also in the process, which I really fell in love with, the nostalgic. Some of you probably aren't even going to remember this particular car. It was a Dodge 330, which in Car Kingdom was the cousin of the Plymouth Polara.
Nope.
Big. It was at that point a mid-size sedan, 4-door, with the old slant 6 225. With an automatic push-button transmission. It was a great car, single-barrel carburetor. But I got 23 miles to the gallon on the highway with that big old boat. I loved it. That was one I brought to my first year in college studies out of town. So it really was a nice rig. It was fun to drive. It was my Uncle Walt's car that I got from him. But I eventually gravitated back to then a 1972 Beetle, which was still a standard Beetle, not the Super Beetle. And with the help of a friend of mine, rebuilt the motor and got everything running on it. But that was the best shaped vehicle I had, as an in-shape vehicle that I had back in those days. I still like the general basic idea of the air-cooled engine from the Beetle era. Just the simplicity of it is, intake and outtake. That's just the way it worked, and it was fun. I used every one of those as not just transportation from A to B. We went through L and R and Q and all of the other letters of the alphabet to get from A to B in the process with those cars. So they were just versatile enough to have fun with, and I enjoyed it. If it was on the beach, we were going into the ocean. If it was in the hills, we were climbing as many hills and going through as many mud holes as we could. So I had fun with those, but I would gravitate back to that, and I still like the simplicity of them. I have since moved on to electronic ignition and
And fuel injection.
and
air conditioning.
Yes.
Yes,
I love the modern.
Yes,
modern engine.
I do like modern. So it beats 240 AC any day. So
Yeah.
So I'm seeing some interesting, not necessarily parallels, but maybe perpendiculars in our stories. So you grew up an air-cooled fan, which translated into Matt's love for all things Volkswagen Beetle. My dad's got a pretty strong history of Ford. In fact, we had a Ford truck as I was growing up. So Fords have been in my family, but I stay away from the found on road dead.
What happened?
Like the plague. I'm telling you, it all goes back to that Chevy Camaro sitting outside of our apartment. If it hadn't been for that, who knows where I would be in my passion or my love of cars. I might like Japanese cars like my brother. Who knows? And
that might be a Fusion instead of a Cruise in the driveway.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Or a Camry.
Ooh.
Or
well, I will say, Cory, that I too am a Chevy guy. Where I went wrong, where Matt ends up not just buying Fords, but being an auto tech in the Ford industry, essentially.
I converted it.
It's job
everything.
security.
It's
job security for him.
Yeah, for him.
But somehow in that process, I was impressed with a 2011 Ford F-150 Super Crew that I had.
Yeah.
And since we're now grandparents of four.
Yeah, I'm seeing a blue oval behind me over my shoulder right now.
It's there, and that's because we are grandparents of four great grandsons, wonderful grandsons, and so we needed the passenger space more than what we needed the versatility of a pickup with. So, and I do drive a Jeep, so that kind of
you're hitting them all.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember Lumina, I remember Impala, I remember
y'all's Impala.
Yeah.
Yes.
We had a Caravan in there. There was your 89 Ford F-150. I mean, we've had kind of a mix of all things American.
And the incredible 84 or 86 S10 Blazer.
Oh, of course. Yes.
86 was a good year for everything. So.
Which, which, pretty much, again, I drove it like I drove my Beetles. So it pretty much wasn't anything. And it was only two-wheel drive. It wasn't anything I didn't ask it to do. It couldn't do.
So, Dad, leading question here because I already know the answer. Are there any auto brands that you have sworn off of or would steer clear of the dealership given your automotive history?
Well, two of them. There's two of them, I could say. I'll never own another Kia.
Uh-oh.
I'll never own another Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And otherwise, I'm pretty much open, looking for a good deal. Right now, we're driving two Hondas, and the little car I drove up in got over 200,000 miles on it.
Been going strong since 03, right?
I don't like to start bragging on them.
Where's some wood?
That's smart, yeah.
Don't jinx it.
So, what's keeping you away from automotive group?
Well, it might not have been the Kia so much, but it had something to do with it, but it was more, I think, the dealer.
Oh.
It had a problem. I think it was finally diagnosed as some kind of fuel sensor. You'd be driving down the road just fine, and it'd just start cutting out on you. Lack of fuel, I guess.
Yeah.
Of course, every time you got to the dealer, it's running fine.
Naturally.
Sorry, we're not going to do anything. And I don't know how many trips it took in complaining. Finally, and I even let them keep the car where they would drive, the manager at the place would drive it back and forth. Well, he's supposed to drive it back and forth to work.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'd fall. Anyway, one day I got lucky. The shop manager hooked his computer up to the car, sat in the passenger seat, and we started to take off, and it started choking down. I said, I didn't do that. It was a car. He said, I saw it. They replaced a little sensor, and that was problem solved. But it was more the dealer. And I guess all car dealers are like that. If I don't see it fail,
Can't do anything about it.
I can do nothing.
Yeah.
Now, that 97 Kia Sophia, if I do remember correctly, is the vehicle that Clay learned to drive stick in.
Yes.
And that poor car went through it in that learning process. I rode in the back seat for Mom trying to teach Clay how to drive that thing, and he put it through its paces.
Yeah.
We'll just say it like that. But it withstood quite a bit of storm. But yeah, it was your territory car. You're putting quite a lot of miles on it as well.
The car
Driving all over East Texas.
The car served its purpose. I was in the service industry, drove all over East Texas, and I was getting, I can't remember how many cents per mile, whatever the Automobile Association, whoever figures it out.
The powers that be.
And it got good enough gas mileage where if I made a trip down to Lufkin and back, which was 80 miles one way, thereabouts, subtracting the amount of gas that it took, of course there's wear and tear on the car, that was money in my pocket. I was looking for something economical that would fit in my job and expenses. To be honest with you, the job I had with the expenses that I was paid, I owned several cars that I drove on the job, and the company actually made the payments on all the cars.
Man, nice.
Paid for the gas, and so I can't complain about it. Like I say, if I made an 80-mile trip one way, 160 round trip, it made good enough gas mileage to where I'm not going to say how much money was in my pocket. That's tax-free.
You're on the plus side of it,
That's
in other
good.
words.
So the little car served its purpose, and I would tell you and your brother, when y'all were complaining or talking about cars, I said, look, you think that little Kia out there is my first choice? It
For
was.
those of y'all that are unaware, I know I've shared some pictures on Facebook and I believe in some YouTube videos. It was a gold beige 97 Kia Sophia, no tinted windows,
It's a nice looking little car.
5-speed. It was not what a teenager of the time would think was a hot rod, but yes, like you said, it definitely served its purpose.
It wasn't a hot rod. It's, I think, 2.3 liter, 5-speed. Excellent gas mileage, and that's what I was looking for. And if it had been a little more, it never left me on the side of the road,
Right.
but it gave me a lot of anxiety on occasions.
Yeah.
And what's driving you away from Chrysler?
Well, we had a Plymouth with a Voyager.
Yeah,
minivan,
1992 Plymouth Voyager.
and we went through transmissions on that.
Oh.
And of course, I bought a car.
That's plural.
I don't. I guess nowadays you can, but back then you just didn't get on the internet and research stuff. At least I didn't really research. I forget a couple of anyway. After several transmission problems, we were up here in East Texas, and it was having transmission problems again. And we was at the Chrysler Plymouth dealership talking about it with the shop foreman manager, and he said, well, we'll take care of it for you. We got the best mechanic on transmissions in East Texas. And I said, well, that's pretty good, but it doesn't matter how good he is. If you're working on something that's not going to last, it ain't going to last.
Yeah.
And the shop foreman actually said, I'm glad you said that. So we drove that as long as we could, and luckily that was one of the cars we bought the extended warranty on. 7 years, 100,000 miles or something.
Wow.
So it actually never cost us money,
No.
just a lot of aggravation.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the vehicle y'all replaced that with also helped spur my brother and myself onto our car love and car fandom. And in the grand scheme of things, it is not like a car you would put a poster up on your wall, but it was a 1998 Pontiac wide track Grand Prix GTP.
Nice.
And that thing had the supercharged engine, 240 horsepower, I believe 280 pound-feet of torque. The thing would move for
underrated. I truly believe it's an underrated engine.
and that
Your mama picked that car out.
and bright red, it stood out. And
sunroof, power windows.
I remember
Pretty car.
when we went to pick it up, y'all pulled over on the side of the road, and I still, every time I drive by that stretch of road, I remember that's where we pulled over, and Clay got to drive the rest of the way home, and he got to put the pedal to the metal. I wasn't quite old enough just yet, but it was a fun car to even ride in the back seat in. And so, yes, y'all picked a few vehicles that have spurred on our love and interest into cars. I pointed out to Matt, it's very interesting that we were talking down on Chrysler minivans. As we sit here on my computer, there's an ad for a Chrysler Pacifica in the same shade of red that our old Plymouth minivan was in.
Nice.
So,
Oh my! We had
The early '90s just were not good in the automotive industry.
yeah, they really
especially
were.
not for American
It
cars.
Yeah.
just wasn't good. So
Well, we had a caravan in our growing up, and that was the one that I did a lot of my driver training, learning on.
yeah,
What year was that van? Do you remember?
I think it was a 2000.
Yeah.
No, that couldn't be right.
Well, y'all had the dual sliding doors. Y'all were the next generation after us.
Yeah.
So,
And it had the 3.8 V6, which was for that thing, it was a strong engine.
yeah. They ended up putting it in a Jeep JK. So,
Yeah, I think it was a 2000,
yeah.
2001, somewhere right in
Somewhere
there.
in there.
And I really it's 3.3.
Was it 3.3?
I think it was the 3.3, which was wonderful on the highway. Once you got it motivated and set into its longevity mode, it
Yeah.
just kind of stayed there and rolled away. So it was good on fuel mileage and space, and of course being in youth ministry for many years, every vehicle we ever purchased was put to work, and that was another one of those that was put to work. So.
That was the car that I took to my prom. As a homeschooler,
There you go.
I made my own prom, and my girlfriend and I went to that. It was myself and my girlfriend, and 3 of my buddies, one of which brought a date. So there were 6 of us in the minivan. It was
Nice.
a perfect
Yep.
setup. We went
Nice.
running around Tyler for a few hours. And
Yep.
Well, I will always remember that van, a youth trip that we took. So I was old enough, I was in my 20s, but y'all were driving that around Beaver Spin State Park, and it was hot. It was the summer. Y'all had both sliding doors open and getting the
Just let
good
the
old
breeze blow
natural air conditioning in on that thing, because that's before you could roll down the
side
sliding,
windows, yeah.
sliding
Oh, yeah.
windows. You could
the back ones
yeah,
would pop out.
like
but
little vents.
yeah.
They did nothing, but for a minivan, I thought that was like the coolest thing. It never would have even crossed my mind, probably because safety and all that stuff. But yeah, you're in the state park. You're
Teenagers bounce.
that's where we say, do as we say, not as we do.
That's right. That's right.
Disclaimer. So, are there?
I'm just going to say I don't recall that at all. So that's,
I remember it quite
there's
well.
your disclaimer.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming for a word from our sponsor. And now, back to the episode. So this is the question that I've been itching to ask both of you, because I'm sure it'll bring up some wonderful stories. Are there stories from either of you about our growing up, our vehicle learning, driver's licensing, tickets, wrecks, whatever the case may be? I know I have plenty on my record.
I was the good kid. Sorry, Clay. Dad's got more stories on Clay than he does on me.
But are there any stories that stick out to either of you about our growing up that our viewers should hear about?
No, Cory kind of put it. He was a pretty good driver as far as I know.
That's that's your disclaimer.
Now,
That is the key.
We
Don't
were,
let them find it. No.
you bought that little white, what kind of
It was,
Oldsmobile
no, it
was
was Pontiac Grand Am GT.
that? Pontiac.
4-door.
Anyway,
GT.
you had bought that and was real proud of it. I was proud of it for you.
That was a sweet
I
little
forget
car.
where we were. You was driving. Your mother was in the front passenger seat. I was in the back seat. And all of a sudden, police car's pulling us over for drunken driving, I think is what he said, wasn't it?
That is what we're pulled over on suspicion of, yes.
Oh my.
So here I am.
I was in the back seat. I know nothing. you can't see anything
Yeah.
out of the back seat of one of those things. That was just, hey, I'm the dad. I don't think you do anything. So,
Yes, I had forgotten about the time. Yes, I was 18 years old, driving my parents home we went out to dinner or something that night, driving south on Broadway here in town, and before you know it, I'm getting pulled over. My mom's in the passenger seat next to me. Stay calm, stay calm. I'm like, what do I do? I don't know. And Dad's, like he said, in the back seat, kind of wondering what's happening all together. And I was being pulled over for suspicion of drunken driving. Simple enough. No, I was not drunk driving with both my parents in the car at the age of 18. I was actually, it was 3 lanes heading south, and I was in the left lane avoiding a car in the middle lane that was swerving into my lane. So I naturally took a little bite out of the turning lane, or as my dad likes to call it, the suicide lane, in between both lanes of traffic. And sure enough, I'm staring right at a cop who is turning or planning to turn much further down the road, and he sees me driving straight towards him in the suicide lane and swerve back into traffic and get around this guy who is actually being the problem. And before you know it, I'm being pulled over with both my parents in the car for drunk driving. Whoopsies. So,
I guess one of my stories about teaching or the learning process with Matthew was I was teaching him how to drive a stick. So I borrowed a friend of ours' little pickup truck.
I haven't disclosed whose it was, so you don't have to.
So I don't have to say the names?
Right, you don't have to say the names.
We won't say the names to protect the guilty.
That's right.
oh gosh.
So we took this little. We were borrowing the truck. We needed something else done, but I thought this would be a great time to teach Matthew how to drive a stick. And so, one of the best ways of doing that that I have found, because I've taught countless students how to drive a stick, was to back it up to a curb and get out and exchange drivers, and then let the student back it up over the curb. You get the good balance between how much you accelerate, how much foot you need to release the clutch and give it gas and all of that. So it was nice, So we had done this a couple of times, and it was bouncy, and a couple of, and one of the last times he was doing really well. Had it right up to about 2,000 RPMs and was slowly releasing the clutch, and it was going well. We were inching up over this parking curb right over by the church we were going to, and he made it up and over, and it was great. He did a good job, and I said, okay, now let's go forward over that parking brick, and about that time, this big plume of gray smoke comes from underneath this pickup truck, and I thought, that's probably not good. And as I smelled it, I realized we were burning the clutch. So needless to say, we swapped drivers, and I got it back up over the curb, and
The lesson was done for that day.
And the lesson was done for that day. And Junior, I'm glad you were able to sell the pickup later and get what you needed out of that truck. But that was probably the most fun time in teaching Matt and in vehicles and how to learn a stick. And the next time was I did actually have a little pickup, had an S10, a little S10 pickup, 5-speed, and the big tree over the parking lot at the church.
Yeah.
Huge. I just think it was a sycamore tree, so it was big, huge leaves, and it would fill the parking lot. Of course, it was a nice, good, rainy day, and so everything was wet in the parking lot. Leaves everywhere. And so I took him up to the parking lot with me, and I said, okay, I need you to learn what it feels like when you start to fishtail and what you're going to need to do.
Sure, that was the intent of the lesson.
And so that was the intent, that was the effectiveness, and
it worked.
And it worked. It taught him a lot about driving, more driving skills, taught him a little bit better on how to deal with those scenarios if they were to come up.
But Matt,
not thinking that it would purposely come up in ever of his, any of his days driving. But
I'm
Matt,
sinking
did it ever?
sheepishly into my chair a little bit here.
he is a much better driver today because of it. That's
Yes.
That's all I want to say.
Yeah. And we can end the story there.
Well, we are getting close to the end point of this episode. Any further thoughts, Dirt, you want to share on either one of us while you have the microphone in front of you?
No. no, there's really not any dirt that would be beneficial in the process, I don't think. But I do believe that, and it's very cliche-ish, but what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
And in the process of being able to teach you guys even the little bit of what we know, what we knew, and what we can pass on, and then to look and see how effective that, plus a whole lot of prayer and a whole lot of God's intervention in nearly every day of your lives.
Yeah.
What a blessing that has been to see.
Lots of busted wheels and shattered rear ends and broken mirrors and
Dad, how come we never went out and fished out the parking lot? That's what I would.
Well,
We had all front drivers at the time too, so it wouldn't have helped.
just never anticipated it, I guess. We didn't get the cars in those kind of situations like your brother did. My dad always said he never owned a car that he didn't know what the top end was.
Yeah.
I never owned a car that I knew what the top end was. I just had no desire or
Yeah.
need to go that fast. Plus, I worry about tickets.
yeah.
Yeah.
That has been more the thing keeping me from anything. I was always the quote-unquote good kid, and so the thought of getting busted was always in the back of my mind. I have been hounded and scoffed at for my car bingo questionnaire where I left off doing a burnout on my bingo board, and I can say that it is that thought that the moment I start having fun doing something I shouldn't, I'm going to pay for it one way or another.
I've done burnout in friends' cars, not just my
Well,
own.
see, there you go. Yeah, and I've driven plenty of rental cars. You'd think it would have come up, but, me, good old responsible kid. So
Yeah.
we'll just, I'll play that story until people quit believing me.
That's it.
Well, Dad, Rob, we are incredibly grateful for y'all coming on this Father's Day special. We're very blessed not only to have you in our lives and leading us to this point in our lives, but just coming on and sharing a little bit of our passion project, something that we're doing together and building up, and a way we can share a little bit of our stories with our listeners and friends. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
I just want to say I appreciate both of you getting together. I know it's a little easier for you, Wayne, to come, across East Texas a little ways than it was for Dad to come from Oklahoma. And I know it
14
wasn't.
miles.
Yeah, a few fewer miles, a little closer. But no, I really appreciate both of you taking some time out of your evening and hanging out with us and picking on us and letting us pick on y'all a little bit and just talk cars for a little while.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah. We'll get to the good stuff after we sign off.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
The show after the show.
Well, that was some fun discussion. Thanks again to both of our dads for picking on us and jabbing a little bit.
Maybe sharing a little too many stories. I don't know.
Maybe just a little. Yeah, we saved some juicy ones for later. I'm sure we'll do this again with them. It was a lot of fun. But it's time to end, unfortunately.
Yes, and like we've said before, this is truly a discussion about all things automotive. We want to hear you sound back about this episode and any other episodes we've ever recorded. You can do so on our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter. They are all at GT Garage Talk. Or you can just go to our website. We've got links to everything, including our social media, our YouTube page, Our email addresses, they're all there. It's gtgaragetalk.com. We truly love hearing back from you, our listeners, our supporters. You can also see our merch while we're there.
That's
so
it.
I'm looking at that awesome hat you're wearing.
That's right.
Matt, and I'm jealous that I haven't ordered me one just yet. But
Question of the week. I have a question of the week for this week.
Go.
So we want to hear your favorite father-son car stories.
Absolutely.
What's the craziest thing that's happened to you and your dad? What's the wildest thing? The coolest thing? An event that you and your dad went to that was life-changing? We want to hear those stories. We want to hear about that from you. So that's kind of our question of the week, our kickoff to the episode. We want to hear back from our listeners.
So yes, absolutely. Share your stories with us. Like I said, all our social medias, email, website, you know the drill. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure and smash that subscribe button and smash that bell icon so you'll be notified every time we upload a new video. We've got some awesome stuff coming, and we've got some pretty good videos on the channel already, but looking to just keep growing our YouTube presence even more. But be sure and like, subscribe, comment, hit that thumbs up, and really helps us out. But until next time, bye.